to another episode of Total R&B Podcast with Lorena. We talk about all things R&B, and I get to interview the latest upcoming veterans, new everything in between artists and R&B. And today I'm super happy because I'm getting to interview somebody who is super talented. He does almost everything. He is a Grammy Award winning artist, singer, songwriter. He's a guitarist, uh, also an actor as well, who has
Mhm.
written for a number of artists, and he got to play the American jazz and R&B guitarist Cornell Dupree in Genius Aretha, which is super dope, and we're going to talk about that a little later. So, welcome to the Total R&B podcast, Cameron Corvet. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm great. I'm so happy to talk to you. I've been following your career. I'm going to get into that, how I discovered your music and everything, and we'll get into that. But the first question that I like to ask my guest is, if you can recall, not the first time you heard R&B music, but what is your first memory of R&B music?
Mm, I have a couple of them. I don't know which one came
Anyone?
first, but I would say it was Christmas, and my uncle's. Well, a little bit of backstory on me. I grew up in a city where without extended family for the first like 9 or 10 years of my life. So my concept of family was just my nuclear family. So one Christmas, my uncles sent us like a video of them lip syncing a song for Christmas. It was Donny Hathaway's "This Christmas," and they were dressed in Christmas gear and everything like that. So in addition to the visual,
Mhm.
it was the song and the vocal of Donny Hathaway that really like moved me. The song made me feel good. So yeah, probably one or two. That was probably one or two.
Oh, I love that. I love that it includes like that memory of family in there.
Yeah,
And that's such a
yeah.
classic song. So yeah, that's beautiful. I love that. And then you are from Cincinnati, Ohio, but your family is from Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Were you born there or you were born in Ohio?
I was born in Baton Rouge, and then I
Okay.
grew up in Ohio. Yeah,
Yeah. And then you went
yeah.
to school in Atlanta.
Yes, I did.
So all those places, do they influence your music a bit?
Definitely. I don't know about Baton Rouge as much as Baton Rouge influenced me in a different way because I listened to a lot of radio
Okay.
in the car going to and from school. So my parents' choice in radio stations influenced me a lot as a little kid in Baton Rouge. I would say Cincinnati influenced me tremendously when it comes to being exposed to live musicianship and being able to spread my wings both from learning the mechanics of singing from studying voice and singing classical music, but at the same time being able to go to places like church, get that live music experience. I have a very musical family, so just being able to kind of see music in a bunch of different ways. I have a lot of aunts and uncles, cousins. So if my mom was ever doing something or my dad was, and we were with one of our family members, they all had a different taste in music. So sitting in the back seat and listening to the different musical vibes that my family members had for them, and then Atlanta, of course. Coming down here for school. So you're so really, like you're so influenced by a lot of different things, especially when you're meeting people from different parts of the country. But then at the same time, Atlanta has its own musical history, which,
Mhm.
is very rich, but at the same time, there's a Southern connotation to it, so you don't get one without the other. So it's a different way of doing things, a different way of saying the same thing. So I learned a lot more about how to deliver a message, as a songwriter, but then also as a singer, if I was singing somebody else's song, how do I want to deliver that in a way that's going to translate to this particular audience that I have?
No, that's cool. And that's really important too, to make a song your own if you're gonna do someone else's song, because a lot of times people want to copy it like exactly instead of making it their own. So I think that's dope. And then your parents, like what kind of music were they listening to in the car? What do you remember?
My dad. just to keep us calm or whatever in the back seat. He would always just play pop, just
Oh,
top 40. So
okay.
that's where a lot of my pop influence has come. And when I say pop influence, I mean from a songwriting standpoint. Like I like being able to tell a story with a song, but I like it to be able to translate from a rhythm standpoint, from a melodic standpoint, so it could be memorable. Those are things that I got from listening to pop music. My dad also listens to a lot of old, not old school, but classic 70s like stuff, the Commodores and
Ooh,
Earth,
yeah.
Wind and Fire and the Shy Lights and the Dells and all those groups. My mom, she listened to a lot of Donny Hathaway. She was a Mathis fan. Um, and she really didn't, I think they gave us freedom of just gravitating to whatever we liked, but it was just a wide variety of stuff that was being played, like the late 80s, early 90s, mid 80s even. There was just a lot more of diversity that was given a platform to be huge. You get
Yeah.
what I mean?
Hmm.
Indie and all of that type of stuff that we gravitate towards to now used to get way more of an opportunity to be widespread and heard by the masses. Back in the 80s, it was like everybody did everything. The weirder, the better, you know?
Exactly. Yeah.
So, I just got a whole lot of that by listening to pop radio because Stevie Wonder would be on pop radio, and Michael Jackson would be on pop radio, and George Michael, and Prince and Madonna and Janet and DeBarge. It was just all existing in one place, which is my concept of music as a creative entity, and also what I would like to see as an advocate for artists and songwriters and creatives.
Definitely. Definitely. And then, so how did you get into music, like becoming an artist? How did that happen?
Uh, I think I always wanted to perform in
Okay.
some way. I grew up performing. We pretty much did it all in my household, but we started leaning towards different creative pursuits as we got older. But I definitely have acted in my share of plays and musicals and, skits. I've also played and that type of thing. So getting into music was just about which art form was going to draw me into it the most. And I think I felt the most like me, or that I could express myself the most through music. So that's what really drove me. There was a certain freedom about singing and creating and having people respond to something that you created in your head. It makes you feel a particular type of way. Having a very musical family just really just made me feel like I had the right. A lot of times people of color, we struggle with what our rights are, in general, including what we have a right to pursue and what we have a right to choose to be our career goals. Like there are a lot of black people who, because they were the first or second generation to be able to go to college, they had to go to college. They
Mhm.
had to become a doctor, a lawyer, nurse, whatever. That freedom really wasn't afforded to all of us. And I think um, for me, like being around a musical family just made music just at my fingertips at all times. So I didn't feel like it was a lofty goal to try to do it, but there was still a plan that had to be kind of put in place and life experiences. And I think the strong foundation of education and everything allowed me to be able to navigate the music industry pretty good so far.
Okay. And you mentioned you come from a musical family. So were they like performing? They were singers, or they like played instruments? Or is
Everything.
yeah.
Yeah, like so I belonged to a church, and like literally in the church, my grandmother played the keys and was the choir director. My cousin played the organ, my uncle played the bass, my other cousin played the drums. All my aunts sang in the choir. My grandfather drove the church bus. My uncle was like one of the pastors. So it was just, it was like church, but it was like our home.
Yeah.
So we just had I just had access at all times. Being at choir rehearsal was hanging out with my family. It wasn't really something that I had to be at, but I knew there was a possibility to see my cousin if I went to choir rehearsal. So it was just like the music would be playing and the rehearsal would be happening. So those norms, when it comes to performing and practice and everything, were just natural for me to adopt because of who I was around.
Okay, so then same thing with the guitar. So that probably came natural as well.
Yeah, I mean, I taught myself how to play, and more or less it was everyone played everything else.
Okay.
Nobody played, lead guitar or acoustic guitar, which was really the first instrument for me. So that was the thing. I'm like, I want to play the acoustic because I don't need an amplifier. I could carry it around wherever I need. I could do it anywhere, and I could write. It made sense. It was like my people have spirit animals. It was like my spirit instrument, the instrument that as a songwriter, I can always come up with ideas to. So I identified that early, and I just wanted to be able to have enough of a command of it in order to create my own songs from scratch.
Okay. So I'm gonna move ahead just a little bit because I discovered your music during the pandemic. So what happened was I love Brian Michael Cox. That's one of my favorite producers. So I'm usually, well, back then a lot. I was in Love Zone, which if anybody listening does not know, Brian would get on Instagram Live and he would DJ, he would play music, but it would start at like super late, like 3 o'clock in the morning, all the way up until like 6 a.m. Crazy hours, but he would play all this R&B music. And one of the songs that he played, which is now like a Love Zone classic, is "NU" by Kameron Corvet. And
Mm.
he would ask us like to tag you, bring you in the chat, and you would come in and you would speak to us and respond to, what we were saying and how much we love the song and everything. So, did you know Brian before that? Is that someone you worked with before?
Yeah, I've known Brian for quite a while, actually. And one of the benefits of being in Atlanta, and one of the reasons why I moved down here, was just to be able to have the possibility of mixing it up with people who were, uh, you know, doing things, active, in the music community, not just locally, but known around the world and everything like that. So you kind of start off coming down here and you're just like, man, I just need to be impressive every opportunity that I get to perform, and the rest will kind of happen. And it kind of does happen that way. It's harder to stay unattached the
Okay.
longer you go because people want to grab you and bring you into a clique or that type of thing, and which can work and sometimes it cannot work. But um Brian was somebody that I always just used to end up bumping into, and as I continued to do music and continue to grow, the more we were bumping into each other more and more. So we had an opportunity to work. We still do work, but we had been working before that actually on some Usher records and some other projects or whatever the case may be. So yeah, I interviewed him for um, I was doing kind of like an Instagram live interview series back in the early part of the pandemic, and I interviewed him, and we were talking about Love Zone, and I just felt like NU would work, and I didn't know if he would even play it. He's a busy guy. A lot of people,
Yeah.
reach out to him, but I ended up tuning in that night, the first night he played it, and the response just, I mean, for what the pandemic was in 2020 for all of us as an artist who was independent and didn't have a deal, the pandemic was really impactful for those people who were like really just out here hustling and grinding. So it represented a moment to still be an opportunity to still be attached to the world at large musically, even as an independent. So I appreciate that opportunity, and I still tune in every now and again. I may
Yeah.
be up and he may be on, and it's just cool just to tap in with him and everything like that. But yeah, B Cox is my guy.
Well, how does that feel? Because like he didn't play it just once. Like he
No.
plays it all the time. And then the other day I logged in on Twitch to listen to him and he's like, "We're playing all classics." And of course he had to play that because That's a Love Zone classic. So to have somebody like that really support your record and support you as an artist, like what does that mean to you?
It means everything because people in the music industry, they become Hollywood. They forget that nobody just made themselves hot. Somebody gave you an opportunity, and I think they don't understand by and large the concept of paying it forward. It's social media is free. We've monetized it, we've made it mean something to us, but it shouldn't mean so much to us that we aren't willing to support people that we think are talented, people that we know are good people and um, deserve a shot. So Brian has always represented a conduit between what's coming and what's already there, and I think he's taken pride in that, and it's just been natural for him. He's always been a stand-up guy, no matter what level you're on, he's the same, he acts the same. So it meant a lot for me for somebody of his stature to support me in a public way. Like,
Mhm.
he's always thought I was dope, but it's like you don't always get an opportunity for somebody to speak highly about you, or do something that shows their level of support. So the fact that he would play it, and play it and play it and play it, and people would request it, and
Yeah.
that's definitely been a shining moment over the course of the last couple of years.
I don't know. To me, it was beautiful to see that, and for me to discover new music because I'm from Montreal. So a lot of times, if there's artists in the U.S. or in Atlanta or different things like that, sometimes I don't always, get to hear them or discover them or what have you. So I found during the pandemic, I got to discover a lot of new artists, and so you were one of them, and I was so happy. So that
Yeah.
also brings me to your EP that I got to check out because I wanted to know more about this person and your single and you. And then I found out you had an EP that you released in 2020 called Kathy's Basement, which is super dope. So please, people, check it out. It's on every streaming platform, so you can go and take a listen. So I wanted to know though, like, what is Kathy's Basement? Like, where did that name come from?
um so Kathy is my mom's name,
Okay.
and during the pandemic, there was that initial fear, of for a lot of people had fears about their loved ones, parents, anybody who was high risk,
Hmm.
for complications for COVID. So during that time period, Kathy's Basement was a project that I had been working on, but I had kind of stalled working on it. And NU was like the tester record for that project. And like right when I was like revving up to start doing something with it, the pandemic hit, So I just started being really introspective and thinking about my mom, wondering if I was going to be able to see her again. And I just always wanted to give my mom a basement because we grew up without a basement, and it was like the thing that she always envisioned for us in our dream house, to have this basement, and we'd be able to do whatever we wanted to do at that point. So the concept became, I'm going to give my mom this virtual basement, and more than that, what I would be doing if we would have had it, which would have been having a band and jamming and everything like that. So that's where the concept came from. I wanted to give her something, memorialize her in some way, give her flowers
Yeah.
musically, during that time. So it was a great experience, and I played. The guys on that project, the musicians on that project are amazing, amazing musicians. So it represents a good time in the studio that we had, where we just got together and had some drinks and some food, and just bonded over music one night. So it was cool.
Oh, that's dope. Well, that's beautiful, the meaning behind the EP. And then who are some of the musicians that you worked with on this?
Daryl Freeman, amazing bass player. Maxwell, Glenn Lewis, shoot, a lot of different folks. Amazing, amazing bass player. Little John Roberts, who is a drummer, longtime drummer for Janet Jackson, George Duke, Neo, Prince. The list goes on and on and on. Stevie Wonder. That's like my big bro. And then Bruce Robinson is on guitar, guitarist for Fantasia. He's actually more on the ministerial side of things now, so more on the gospel side of things. And then it's kind of everything was kind of overseen by Pierre Mador, who's an amazing producer. He's produced for Usher, produced for Rick Ross. He's produced, I mean, for Mario or Marion. Like he's done a lot of cool things, a lot of cool things. So we all have known each other, you
Hmm.
know, and it's like you see people walking around, you bump into them at shows, but then getting together and working with them is like a real treat because you can just connect, and it's kind of how we connect and thrive. We thrive off of one another, so it was a good experience, and I'm looking forward to like getting those guys back in the studio and doing some more stuff.
No, that would be great because the EP was like really good. So I really
Thank you.
enjoyed myself. But I think that happens too when you get together with people and it's just like a really good vibe, like good energy all around. I think that produces just like really good music.
Yeah.
The outcome comes out great. And you had mentioned before, like working with Brian, like doing stuff on different projects. So I do know that you write for people as well. So who are some people that you've gotten the chance to write for?
I've written for gosh, a lot of indies and some known artists as well, actually. Written for Tony Braxton. I've written for Sting and Shaggy. I actually wrote a single and composed a single that what ended up being the start of a relationship between those guys as artists, but also it created this album called 44876, which was my grand introduction as a songwriter to the music industry. And the album won a Grammy. It was a great time. Avery Sunshine, who is indie R&B soul, just amazing, amazing artist. An international artist named Mr. Probs. He had a big record called Waves. He and I have known each other for years. Angie Stone, Case. I've had a chance. It's been interesting. I've had a chance to work with people that I listened to, growing up and at different moments in my trajectory. So it's never seemed like work. It's always just been, an amazing experience. Like thinking about like Angie Stone, for example. I mean, listening to D'Angelo,
Hmm.
huge influence of mine, and listening to Angie, in her own right, but the appreciation for her as a songwriter and as an artist and as someone who kind of really helped the new soul movement kind of get its boost in the late 90s. Working with her was just like, I mean, uh
That's
just
incredible.
awe-inspiring for me.
Yeah. But is there somebody that you haven't worked with that you hope to work with in the future?
I mean, that's a good question. I think I maintain this bucket list of artists that I would always love to work with. I'd love to work with Sade, you know what I mean? Um, I think I would like to work with her as well. Sometimes I kind of steer away from artists that are heavy in the spotlight
Hmm.
because you can sometimes you lose yourself creatively when you're just running around, all the time. So I definitely would love to work with some more of the greats. Like Seal would be amazing to work with. Lenny Kravitz probably at the top of the list. John Mayer, guitar. When you're working with people who you admire, you're really like in class.
Yeah,
It almost feels unfair because you're learning, but it's an opportunity for you as well. So yeah, definitely those. I mean, I'm sure there are others that I can't maybe like think of. All the hip hop dudes, like I love hip hop. It's my thing. So any of those guys I would love to work with as well. Andre 3000, Erica Badu. I mean, Kanye, I would love to work with Kanye. So, all of that.
well, I think it's gonna happen because even the way that you got your song to Shaggy and Sting was pretty incredible. So I don't know if you want to share that story on how you wrote a song and then it just kind of got into the hands of someone else who introduced it to someone else, and you could obviously explain it better.
Yeah. So in essence, the song started here in Atlanta. I was just sitting on my floor Sunday afternoon, one of those days where you really don't have any any cares in the world. I have a tendency to write about the rougher side of romance or love just because that's what my experience, the majority of my experience has been, you know. However, I think that, you know, I mean, I think love is the most powerful thing out here. So if you can tap into that and write about it effectively, I think you could be, you know, have a great career as a songwriter. So it was really a challenge to myself to write something that was loving, that got to the point, that, you know, wasn't too many words. I really was just trying to make sure I could get something succinct, and I ended up composing and writing a chorus for a song and writing some other parts as well. And you know, just in a random exchange, I exchanged the idea with another producer that I know who went to Morehouse with me. He added a little bit to it, and then he happened to be talking to someone who's a songwriter, who's a collaborator of Shaggy's. That guy heard it. He added a little bit to it, gets it to Shaggy. Shaggy loves it, but you know, it's an incomplete record at that time, but he still loves it. Song sits for about maybe a year, and I get a random call. You know, the random call is, "Hey, you know, at the time I was going to stay, possibly going to stay on the song as the singer as well as a featured artist." And it was one of those good news and bad news conversations. And the bad news was that I wasn't going to be the artist on the song anymore. But the good news was that the artist on the song was going to be Sting. And I'm like, how did that happen? So basically, Shaggy ended up with the song in LA, working on another song that had nothing to do with this song, at, just in the studio. And in studio breaks, that's the best time to sell a record or to get a feature or anything, because you're just in the studio and there are a bunch of different people around. And even when you're taking a break, you're still listening to music. So Sting's manager is the conduit that connected the song to Sting, basically just in one of those random studio breaks where, you know, he's asking Shaggy, "What are you working on currently?" He's like, "I've got this song." And he plays the song for Sting's manager, and Sting's manager is like, "Man, I think Sting would be great for this." So he sent it to Sting. Sting like loved it and drove to the studio like 45 minutes later, and that started the recording process for this song, which turned into an album, which turned into a tour and a Grammy and all this other stuff. So God was definitely like, it was like divine, you know, the whole situation. But when you have this, all it takes is one of those situations for to happen for you to believe, you know. Can never question it again. I can never question, you know, my own talent, you know, favor. I can never question that because I saw it happen, you know,
With
in
two
real life for me. Yeah.
big artists, like Shaggy is a legend. Like I've been listening to Shaggy since I was a kid. Sting is like out of this world. Like he's one of those people like, oh, he really exists. So
Yeah.
to have those two artists take on a song that you've written, that's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
And then going from just that to just winning a Grammy too, like you had no
Yeah.
clue sitting on your floor writing that song that that's where that song is gonna go. So
Exactly.
that is super dope. Do you ever look back on all the stuff that you've like gone through and just be like, how did all this happen?
I do. Uh
Mm.
Um, and you know, you can't got to see the forest for the trees. So it's like we tend to focus on what we haven't done a lot in our careers. That begins to be the cloud hanging over us, and we tend to focus less on what we have been able to accomplish. And the fact remains, you know, uh, from seeing my uncles, you know, pantomime a song by Donny Hathaway to all the points in between, somewhere along the way, everything connected, and I ended up with the ability to create something from scratch that would, you know, go the distance. You know, it does not happen all the time. I've definitely written a lot of songs, you know, but it's a testament to the fact that if you continue to do something consistently and you put your all into it every time, you know, it's going to happen. One, and two, you don't have to feel like you didn't deserve it when it does. And that's the other part that's gratifying. Like, I know that I put the work in, so when you put the work in, you can expect something good to happen from it, and that feeling just kind of gives your soul a little bit of peace, and also is a motivating factor to continue doing it.
Of course. So yeah, well, congratulations on all those achievements because it's pretty awesome everything that you've done in your career so far. So I know a lot of like great things are coming up. But another super cool thing that you did was that you were in Genius,
Hmm.
the Aretha Franklin series that came out, and you were a guitarist. So how did that role come about?
Very randomly again. um, I it's a random Sunday afternoon, again,
Okay,
Sunday afternoon,
it might be
something.
your lucky day.
Yeah. Sunday afternoon, I get a text, and apparently a friend of mine who's a guitar player who was already in the series, as they had already started shooting. He ended up being someone that they reached out to see if he knew any other guitar players that could potentially play this role. I did the introductory things like sending, pictures and me playing, whatever the case may be. And then based on headshots and everything, I just so happened to kind of work for this role. Initially, it was maybe only like 2 days of shooting, and I'm like, cool, it'd be, cool to do.
Mhm.
And this is like we started shooting like the week before the pandemic really like took off.
Wow.
So it's like I was super excited, being on set with Ti and Cynthia Erivo and all these other people for my first like real like acting opportunity. And we're like taking breaks in between shooting, and people are like talking about this pandemic.
Mhm.
So I can't have like one experience without the other. It's almost impossible because they were so closely connected. But that role ended up being a sustaining force for me for that 2020 season. So I ended up only supposed to be shooting maybe 2 days. I ended up shooting like 10 days, and we got suspended during the pandemic, but we picked back up that October of the pandemic. So even coming back and being on set and getting tested like every other day and having to wear a mask like all the time, and social distancing, being outside, like it was all that for on my first like significant, more significant acting role. So I think about all those things, and I think about how initially it was only supposed to be a couple of days, but I felt like almost giving it my all those first couple of days.
Mhm.
I I don't want to say I'm not surprised, but it was kind of like I put that energy out there in just being around, that I really wanted to be there some more time, and I ended up getting some more days. So the gratifying part was watching the whole thing play out, because there were episodes I was not involved in. So this to be able to see the rollout process, and how the advertising is done, and to watch it as a movie watcher or whatever, just
Yeah.
it was cool. Yeah, definitely.
Super dope. And were you familiar with Cornell Dupree before getting the role? Or did you
I
learn
was
about him as you were doing it?
I learned about him more specifically as I was doing the role, but the list of artists that he's played for, from Donny Hathaway to King Curtis to Aretha herself to his own thing, like there are plenty of songs that Cornell Dupree has been on that I had been listening to for years, but I just didn't know who it was playing the guitar. So um, it was cool to do my research and to see moments that we were going to be playing out in real life, and to go back and find these moments on YouTube, and to see Cornell Dupree in there, from the Amazing Grace documentary that came out on Aretha. That's Cornell Dupree. And her when she performed at the Fillmore, there's footage of that as well. So it's like being able to see that, and then and try to just live up to something like that is cool. He's definitely one of the greatest session guitar players that has been involved in R&B for sure. So I was glad to be able to play him.
Yeah, definitely. And so from that, what's another role that you would love to play? Do you have anything in mind?
I would love to play Prince.
Ooh, yeah,
Yeah, at
that
some
would be
point
so cool.
I would love to play Prince. I mean, Purple Rain is one of my favorite movies of all time. Um, it's weird, but every now and again, um, there are some physical resemblances sometimes, depending on the picture of the day or whatever the case may be. And I do feel like I could probably embody some of the things. Being a guitar player doesn't hurt, you know. Being able to sing doesn't hurt. Being able to act doesn't hurt. So I would rather it be a real guitar player, a real performer who tried to execute something like that than anybody else. So I would gladly throw my name in the hat in order to try to make that happen. But of all the roles, I definitely would love to do that and anything else that came my way.
Well, that would be super cool. So if ever somebody puts something online, everybody, you got to put his name in there so they know
Yes.
who he is and that they consider him for the role. That would be super super dope.
Yeah.
I also wanted to ask you because you did release a single called "Who Hurt You" this year.
Mm-hmm.
So if you can tell us what that's about, and then also to the cover art because the cover art was really nice too.
Um, so I think a lot of times men are usually the culprit, maybe in relationships. If there's not a mutual breakup, I'd say generally speaking, there's a man that's done something. And we hear about it a lot, musically and otherwise, but I'm someone who the opposite has happened too. So I just wanted to try to present that perspective, not only just as a guy, but as a guy in this industry. It's very tricky um, to date because depends on what the preconceived notion was before everything started. You know, you kind of have to figure out, okay, who does this person think I really am? What did they think I was when they met me? And then how do I either affirm or kind of recreate that perception. So it's about the aftermath of a relationship when people are always trying to talk about why things broke up and they want to kind of keep themselves on the positive and the other person on the negative. So it was just presenting the other side of the story, because I know I've fallen short in a couple of situations. So being inspired by that and saying, hey, but wait, what about this, what about you, what about these situations? So the artwork, um, it's a play on like fairy tale gone wrong, the prince in the storyline, whose heart is kind of waxed cold, if you will. So there's a lot of symbolism in there. There's a purple heart in there that represents a couple of different things. Purple, obviously, color wise, but even a Purple Heart, you get that in the States. You get that in war when you're wounded. So love is war, that type of thing. Uh, there's a lot of other symbolism in there as well that will lend itself to later releases. But yeah, that was kind of the overall gist was kind of like fairy tale prince. You know, that story kind of gone wrong, if you will.
No, but I think that's the beautiful thing about music because we get everybody's perspective on things, right? Because nothing just goes just one way. And it is true
Right.
in a lot of, especially R&B songs. It's usually like the man did us wrong, we're crying, da 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 da. So now to see another perspective, it's also good too because there's going to be a bunch of people that are going to relate to that because unfortunately, you know, each side gets hurt.
Yeah.
So I think that's good. Because speaking of that too, like I know Division just released their song "If I Cheat" that has been
Yeah.
very controversial. So
Yeah.
this,
Nothing wrong with a little controversy, right?
I guess not. The song, yeah, it's out there. It's doing its thing. But yeah, so you get to just see different perspectives, which I think is really important. So even with your single that you have out now that everybody could go and stream. So I think that's super cool. And so the Purple Heart, is this going to be a theme within like the new music that you're going to be putting out,
Uh,
or you can't say?
I don't know that it would be a theme. I do think that part of like moving forward and growth is acknowledging your own tendencies,
Hmm.
you know. Some of us get so used to being hurt that we kind of create a situation for us to be hurt in so
Hmm.
that we can, because we thrive in some way when we're hurt. So for me, I can't say that there hasn't been some self-sabotage involved in my own personal, you know, romantic exploits or whatever the case may be, but it's just a feeling that I know well. It's a feeling I identify with. It's a feeling that's produced results as a musician, but it doesn't leave you feeling fulfilled as a person. So I think, you know, understanding that life is really about responding to adversity and love and relationships, it's a microcosm of life, you know. So responding to it means you're going to get hurt, you know, but it doesn't mean that, you know, you lose
Yeah.
just because you've been hurt. So I wouldn't say that the Purple Heart itself is a reoccurring thing. I think I'm always trying to pay homage to the influence that Prince has been on me. So if there's a way to incorporate it somewhere so people know, like, you know, this is who he's following. This
Hmm.
is these are the people who artistically he's aspiring to be, you know, in line with in the lineage of artistically. So yeah,
Okay. And so then what is next? What can we look forward to besides the single now that we should be streaming? But
yeah,
what's next
yes.
for Cameron?
You know, I've been really toying around with social media in some creative ways. I want to kind of use it more as a platform to distribute new
Okay.
music instead of all of the streaming platforms because, you know, if you listen to Spotify and I listen to Apple Music, we still come together commonly and watch things on Instagram.
Hmm.
So if something is available on Instagram and that's your source, or TikTok is the source for the distribution, then you kind of keep everybody from going to their separate, you know, listening streaming sources, and you keep them all in one place. So I'm going to be toying around with releasing some shorter songs via that platform, those
Okay.
platforms, but at the same time, still working on releasing new music. I've been working on a project for the last few years. It's an acoustic project. So,
Good.
yeah, I'm excited about it. But, you know, sometimes as an artist, you get really in your own head. You want things to be completely perfect. You know, if you cough
Yeah.
at 8 a.m., then all of a sudden, oh no, I can't record today because I don't feel well. And it's like, bro, come on now. Like let's cut the excuses out. Let's focus and everything like that. So I'm running around doing a lot of different things, and writing can be great, but you have to like put on a different brain almost in order to visualize speaking on the behalf of this 18-year-old female artist versus this
Okay.
34-year-old male artist. You get what I mean? So it can be taxing emotionally, and you just feel drained sometimes. Plus, I do a lot of performing as well. So I think some of the personal material is taking a backseat, but um, it's really more so been understanding what the songs mean. You know, you can write a song as a great craftsman of songs,
Mm.
but delivering those songs still requires a certain intimacy, you know, still requires a little bit of time to get to know the record so that when you say this line, you say it exactly the way you want people to understand it, you know? So more music for sure, more content definitely.
Okay.
Yeah, so all of the
Well, I
above.
can't wait for the acoustic album. So I'm looking forward to that and everything else you have coming out because I think it's really cool for you to be using your social media platform to release music because I know a lot of different artists are trying to figure it out too. Because even with streaming platforms, they don't always pay the best as well. We've gotten to see that within the last 2 years that information has come out. So yeah, that would be really interesting. So I'm gonna definitely be following to see, how things are being rolled out and how everything goes because I think a lot's changing again as always. So yeah, that's pretty cool. And before we get into R&B trivia, I did want to ask because you did say like how sometimes it can be draining, and I think a lot of creatives get to that point, especially now when we always have to produce content. People want things like really, really quickly. Nobody
Yeah.
really wants to wait and have people kind of like live their lives before they put out more content. So when you are drained, like what do you do in forms of like, I guess, self-care for you?
For me, what I'm realizing currently is I got to get out the house, first of
Okay.
all. Um, Getting out of the house sometimes makes people overthink because they're like, I have to be going somewhere specific to do a specific thing. And I've gotten out of that. And sometimes I'll just leave and take a drive, you know. I do a lot of songwriting while I'm driving because I'm focused on the road.
Hmm.
So my first train of thought is that functional part of my brain is focused on driving. So it allows that second that to be dedicated to driving, and that second or third train of thought can be on writing. So I do it for that reason, and also I do it so that I make sure it's simple enough to remember, because if I'm not writing anything down at the time period and I'm just saying lines that I know I'm going to remember, then it stands to reason that somebody who listens to it on the first listen will be able to remember it as well. So getting out of the house for sure. I started to also watch things that I used to watch when I was a kid as well, to just completely like wipe the slate clean.
Hmm.
I'll watch, a whole bunch of Pixar cartoons, old school TV shows, just different things like that, and totally like take myself uh out of this I don't know what you want to call it, this time frame, if you will, and take myself to another time frame by just I might watch Goonies or something, you know what I mean? And just by watching Goonies, it may be something that one of the characters says, and maybe one of the songs that's being played in the movie that I never heard or didn't remember hearing before. It could be anything, and that'll just inspire me to work.
No, that's good. And that's the second time I heard that. I'm going back to like your childhood shows and stuff that you used to watch. So I think that's a sign that's something I'm gonna have to do. But yeah, that is the second time I heard that. So yeah, that's cool. So if you're ready, we're gonna get into some R&B trivia. Don't be nervous. I have 6 questions for you,
All right.
and we'll see how well you do. Some of them are easy, some of them maybe not, but we'll see. So the first question is, which group, and it's multiple choice. So,
Oh, hey.
which group does not have a set of twins? Is it Jagged Edge, Chloe and Halle, Cherish, or Nina Sky?
Oh my. Oh my gosh, does not have a set of twins.
Yeah,
Chloe and Halle.
that's correct. Look
Yeah.
at that. You got the first one right off the bat. Okay. Second question. Which R&B female singer starred in the movies Fighting Temptation and Austin Powers Goldmember? Is it Alicia Keys, Mariah Carey, Faith Evans, or Beyonce?
Beyonce.
That's correct. All right. Question 3. The singer from Atlanta is known for her hits Goodies and One Two Step. Is it Carrie
Si-
Hilson, Monica, Ciara, or Nivea?
I would say Sierra.
Correct. See, look how this is easy for
Yeah.
you. This is super, super easy. Okay. Next one. What is the name of Boyz II Men's first album?
Mm.
So your options are Evolution or Nathan, Michael, Sean, and Wanye, The Remedy, or Cooley High Harmony.
Cooley High Harmony.
There you go. Next question. Which a member of New Edition was a part of the group LSG? This is not multiple choice
Johnny Gill.
though. Correct. And then the
Yes.
last question. Who was the first woman inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame? Do you know who that is?
Offhand,
You're connected to her.
I'm connected to her.
Mm-hmm.
Aretha.
Yes. There you go. 6 out of 6. Look at that. And you were nervous in the beginning and you got all of them right off the bat, just like that. So that concludes our R&B trivia. So let the people know where they can follow you, what they should be doing to support Cameron Corvet.
Okay, so you can follow me on everything. Just the name, Cameron, Kameron. Last name Corvet. That's on Instagram, Facebook, everything. I answer all my own DMs.
Okay.
So for you DMers, hit me up. Um, and how you can support. So I pride myself on being an artist and a creative that hasn't, sold my soul. You know what I mean? I like to maintain my integrity so I can sleep at night. But what that does is it means that really the consumer is the music listener is the one that's going to be able to help me the most. It's not the industry, it's the consumer, the listener. So we're all surprised at how things become a thing and how artists that we know blow up, but it's not a surprise. It's when you take 2 seconds in addition to the 2 hours that you already spend on social media watching things by people that you don't know and don't even care about, that you take those 2 seconds and share something of mine, share something you like. I promise to give you something worth sharing at some point, and just share it with somebody that you think would like it. That's how things happen. That's how vibes and music spreads. And I consider it to be something that I know people would do for me, but I want to let that be known, that support is free.
Hmm.
And I think we should take advantage of using these platforms to really help people that we feel like deserve an opportunity to be heard by a larger audience to get there. So it's really simple.
Yeah, no, I love that. Support is free. So definitely, everybody, please support him. His music is amazing. Check out the EP, Kathy's Basement. Check out Who Hurt You. If you haven't seen Genius, you could check that out as well. And I know there's more things that are coming that you let us know about. So thank you so much, Cameron, for coming on the Total R&B podcast today and taking time out of your day to speak with me. I really, really do appreciate it. And for everybody listening, thank you so much. We are a bi weekly podcast, so we will be back in 2 weeks with another interview. Thank you.
Love it.